Call me crazy, but Martin Scorsese makes great fucking movies. It's a hot take, I'm aware, but I'm willing to take the heat for my controversial opinion. Scorsese's movies are universally loved and praised by everyone from college students who mistakenly idolize murdering criminals as heroes, to men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s who live vicariously through the freedom of his characters, to pretentious film students who like Scorsese movies but really love him because he shit on Marvel movies the other day.
And their theaters were almost like amusement parks in a sense. So these films now, I think, are more like theme rides in a way.
To the average moviegoer who liked Wolf of Wall Street for scenes like this, and this.
I'm not leaving.
I'm not fucking leaving!
But had no idea he directed it. To Netflix bingers, where the closest they've come to watching a Scorsese film is scrolling past The Irishman to get to their 15th rewatching of The Office or Parks and Rec. But at least the Academy recognizes Martin Scorsese as one of the greatest filmmakers of our... Oh. Well, I love Martin Scorsese, and chances are if you clicked on this video, you do too. I'll be honest, I don't know how much of a new perspective I really have to bring to the table on Scorsese or Raging Bull, as there are more video essays on YouTube about him and this particular movie than smile lines on De Niro's face. But I'm doing this assignment for my film appreciation class, so here we go. Marty loves characters. Scorsese is obsessed with having his movies star complex, often fucked up characters who rarely save the day or would be even considered moderately good people by society's standards. What a great idea to make movies about these kinds of people. His characters often burn twice as bright but half as fast, meaning his characters usually live this aggressive, rock and roll, unsustainable lifestyle that typically ends in a tragic blaze of glory, and Raging Bull is no different. The movie stars Jake LaMotta, a man imprisoned. He is shackled by insecurity, trapped by a never-ending, never-slowing, absolute need to prove to everyone around him and himself that he is the toughest guy there is. The ring is his cell, the rope his bars. The only difference is that Jake is not a fan of prison, as we'll see later in the film, and he fucking lives for what he does in the ring. But before we see the teased fight, the film flashes forward to the 60s. Here, Jake is old and fat, smoking a cigar while he recites his monologue before he goes on stage. Listen to what he says.
It is to remain in my thoughts, because one night I took off my robe, and what I do, I forgot to wear shorts. Poor Sugar Ray would say that the thing ain't the ring, it's the play. So give me a stage where this bullhead can rage, and though I can fight, I'd much rather recite. That's entertainment.
Beyond this line just being the name of the film, so give me a stage where this bullhead can rage, fundamentally tells us who this character is and what makes him tick. Jake needs the selective attention of strangers in the form of approval, and boxing is just how he happens to get it. The movie then resumes in the 40s as Scorsese takes us headfirst into a boxing match.
That's entertainment.
Jake LaMotta and Jimmy Reeves in the Cleveland Arena. LaMotta is
The fight opens with Jake losing. As the announcers say,
The Bronx Bull has taken a lot of punishment in this bout.
Scorsese corroborates this story by having the camera rush towards Jake violently to emphasize his exhaustion. When he cuts to his opponent, the camera slowly pushes in on him and is relatively smooth in comparison to Jake's shot. He's not exhausted, he's not sweaty, he's calm. The outcome of the fight is also very symbolic of Jake's story. Jake ends up losing the fight because he took too long to knock out his opponent. He wasn't worried about winning on the scorecards, all he wanted was the knockout. He didn't box smart, he boxed angry. But that's not the only symbolic nature of this first fight. After Jake gets his approval from the crowd, the violence from the ring bleeds into the audience, infecting them like a disease, causing pain and unintended suffering. The violence in Jake's ring overflows into the crowd in the same way it overflows into every aspect of Jake's life. But as the way more talented folks over at A Matter of Film said, this is not a boxing movie. Like I said earlier, Scorsese's films are driven by character, and this is a character study into what makes Jake tick. Jake LaMotta is a self-loathing narcissist in denial about his own insecurities. And this obvious insecurity is shown and established in this early scene between him and Joey. Jake explains to Joey that he's upset that he'll never be able to fight Joe Louis because he's just a middleweight.
No matter how big I get, no matter who I fight, no matter what I do, I ain't never gonna fight Joe Louis.
Joey's response is, of course,
But you're crazy to even think about something like that. I mean, he's a fucking heavyweight or a middleweight. It's impossible. It'll never happen, so Why go crazy thinking about it? It's not normal.
But Jake's unrest on the topic of never being able to fight Joe Louis is clearly eating him up. This is why right after that, he gets Joey to hit him, because he needs to prove he's tough to his brother after being even slightly vulnerable in front of him. The only emotion Jake is comfortable with is anger.
Harder. Yeah? You throw a punch like you're taking up the ass. Come on. Harder. Harder. Harder.
That's hard. You fuck. What do you want?
Jake is addicted to chaos and violence. He is a man who fights for a living. Pain and war is his profession, and he loves it. He loves to get hit just as much as he loves dishing it out. I believe Jake has a fear of peace, of the status quo. When things are calm, his restless mind becomes paranoid, looking for things to worry about and ultimately justify violence.
Me about a steak, huh? You bought me about a steak? Yeah.
Why does Jake do this? Is Jake inherently a violent person? Maybe. I do know that almost guaranteed CTE caused from getting beat up for a living definitely can't help Jake's ability in controlling his temper. It could also be that stillness forces self-reflection, and that scares Jake, because he knows he's not going to like what he sees in the mirror, and his refusal to admit wrongdoing and guilt throughout the film is evidence of this. One of the few times we see violence isn't Jake's main objective is when he meets Vicky in the club. Scorsese does this scene so well. Jake is pursuing Vicky, and Scorsese uses methodical camera movement coupled with slow motion to show that Jake, for the first time that we can see, is not drawn to the violence around him. The fight happening in the club around him is nothing more than background noise and distractions from him getting to his goal of Vicky. And when he fails to get to Vicky before she leaves, Jake almost immediately involves himself in the fight around him.
Get the fuck out of here, big boy! Get out of here, you fucking bum!
That's why we believe the love Jake has for Vicky even after he abuses her. The one character trait most prevalent in the film thus far is Jake's magnetic attraction to upheaval. And Vicky is the only one who can release Jake from that spell so far, at least for a little while. Before I end the video, I just want to touch on one last topic. My favorite movies, and I think all good movies, are about character. Movies should be about something happening to someone. The internal struggle that characters deal with throughout the movie is truly what the movie is about. I feel that all scenes in all movies, including Raging Bull, can fit into two categories that I came up with. And I just want to say that I know that these basic ideas have been touched on before, but it's an extremely important concept, and I just want to convey it in a very upfront way. The first category is what I call stake scenes. These scenes typically are slower paced, not a ton of action, usually dialogue heavy, and are hopefully rich, complex, and subtle in internal human conflict. The other category I call dessert scenes or sugar scenes. These scenes are typically and hopefully more visually interesting, action-focused, and deal with external conflict. They are usually just entertaining on a surface level in most films. They are sweet, but not rich. In superhero movies, it's the action scenes. In Star Wars, it's the space battles and lightsaber fights. In spy movies, it's the car chases. And in John Wick, it's most of the movie. Almost always, these sugar scenes is what the movie is marketed as. It's the vehicle to tell the human story underneath. The Dark Knight is about a crime-fighting vigilante superhero, but is actually about a man dealing with his self-inflicted, unwavering sense of duty to justice in the face of opportunity at true happiness. And this brings me to my point. It's widely known that Scorsese did not like sports and had never watched boxing before making this movie. That's why boxing matches done in this film are not done realistically. Everything is in a heightened state of reality. There are animal sounds used to emphasize punches, smoke to block out the crowd, dramatic, unrealistic lighting, and what I can only describe as Jimi Hendrix-style editing. The boxing matches in this movie aren't just made with a level of expert craftsmanship rarely seen in cinema history. They are most importantly not just to serve the story, but to advance it and give it new meaning and insight into the characters. These fights show Jake's reactions to things happening in his life in a way we don't see outside of the ring, and therefore advance the audience's understanding of him. So while they're fun to look at, they also have meaning and purpose. Scorsese gets the best of both worlds, a sweet, sugary, yet rich and savory steak. Actually, a sugar-covered steak sounds disgusting, but you get what I'm saying.